Well, a little bit about our show, man. We're not a breaking news type show. We love storytelling. So if you have a story or anything, feel free to share it.
Oh man, I got Stingray. I got tons of them in the back pocket, man. I got
Yes.
tons of
Okay.
them. Tons of them in the back pocket, man.
Okay.
But yeah. So here's one of them. So man, whoop, man, I'm gonna tell you. The first national championship I was able to cover with TDA was the 2016 game off the 15 season. So it was the first time Deshaun Watson tried to give me a heart attack. And I remember I hopped on the plane from Birmingham to I thought you could fly out of Texas or across Texas or over Texas. I learned the hard way you cannot. So the plane took me from Birmingham to Houston. I stayed overnight at Houston, and you want to talk about me and 100 Hispanics sharing the same phone charger? That's what that was. I mean, slept all night in the airport, was uncomfortable to a certain degree, but we made it happen. The next morning, I'm throwing water on my face, trying to get to a Cinnabon to get a coffee, and I get a call from my folks. They're like, "Steven, how are your bags doing?" I'm like, "I'm doing okay." "Steven, how are the bags?" "You're a living, breathing individual. I'm doing okay. We get you, Steve, but how are the bags?" "The bags are next to me." So we go from Houston to Phoenix. We get there with bags under my eyes, completely agitated, but I'm okay. We got off the plane. My older sister was there to meet me at the airport. The flight I was on, United Flights, they lost my luggage. So my sister is highly ticked off. I had to get her in the car because she was about to have an episode. We finally were able to get the luggage 2 days later and enjoyed a magnificent national championship. As a funny story, Kenyon Drake's 95-yard kickoff return, he scored right in front of me. As he knelt down, he bent down right in front of me. It's one of the coolest moments of my life. Now, watching Kenyon Drake go from having the injuries that he had to scoring that touchdown right in front of me.
Yes.
That is pretty cool. Steven, you ready?
I'm good to go, man.
Let's start it.
All right, cool.
The Dogs and Stingray are coming for you.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Good afternoon, Mr. Feinbaum. Stingray here, and I'm about to shoot the bull with you like all the Auburn students do down at Auburn.
Worst defense ever!
So without further ado, here is the biggest Alabama going for the field goal. The kick is up. It is away. It is no good. Chris Davis bringing it out of the end zone. Oh, he's got blockers. Chris Davis up the sideline. Here he goes.
Here we go, guys. Dobbs back to pass. Launching the ball. Jennings, he's got it. Jennings, he's got it. Touchdown, Tennessee. They shocked the Dogs in Sanford Stadium. Are you kidding me? My God almighty. What an epic way for the Tennessee-Georgia rivalry to end this game. What a play. Wow.
Inside another exciting edition of the Stingray Show, everybody. I am your host, Stephen Ray, and as you can see, we've got Alabama gear behind us, and I'm actually wearing a Crimson Tide shirt, so we must be talking about the Crimson Tide of Alabama, and that's exactly right, because their spring game was this past Saturday, and then, of course, Alabama knocked off Auburn this past weekend in baseball as well. So we're going to be talking a lot of Alabama sports, but before we get to that, let me go ahead and pull up my co-host, Heath Hopkins. Heath, how are you doing today, sir?
Hey, Steven, we're doing great, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. And now I know that Alabama's spring game was this past weekend. What about Mississippi State's?
You know, forgive me, I think I'm saying it right. But is it Abrams? Abraham?
Yes.
Yeah. I think someone forgot to tell him he was coming in to be the backup.
Right.
He had a phenomenal game.
Yes.
The spring. You can't put too much stock in any spring game, Steven.
Right.
Because guys have bad games or bad practice all the time. So,
yes.
You can't really put too much stock in who did good, who did bad. But I will say this for Mississippi State fans. They are very confident whoever the backup is will be very excited to see them come in and play. I think there's a quarterback battle brewing in Starkville. I really do.
Right. Well, today on the Stingray Show, we're going to have a guy who is a friend of mine who has been on other podcasts that I've had. He is also a writer for Touchdown Alabama magazine, and he also has his own show, or he's a part of a show called the Bama Standard. He basically knows the ins and outs of Alabama. Ladies and gentlemen, here is our special guest today to talk things all Alabama, Stephen M. Smith from Touchdown Alabama magazine. Stephen, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm great, guys. I'm fantastic. It's Sunday. We're fresh off of a spring game, and I'm fresh off of having my face cooked by the sun. I'm good.
Well, let's go in and talk about it. What did you think about the spring game from Alabama yesterday?
I thought it was a competitive venue, and that's kind of what you wanted to see for the most part. I mean, from 2018 this past year, we've seen the offense more so dominate the defense, and I felt like this past game, both sides of the ball, did something. I feel like Bryce Young checked off the boxes that you wanted him to check off at quarterback. He made some big throws. He was consistent with it, had some touch passes, had some bullet passes, threw the ball with sometimes pressure all around him and in his face. So that was something that Nick Saban and Bill O'Brien wanted to see. Could this young man in Bryce Young operate this offense the way we want to see him do it? And I felt like the fans saw that, the coaching staff saw that, as he did have over 300 yards passing and 1 touchdown. But I felt like what really impressed me, guys, Bama's got some hungry dogs on this defense. It is insane. I mean, the first team defense, no Will Anderson, no Christian Harris, no Malachi Moore. It didn't even matter. It did not matter one bit. I mean, Jalen Moody did his thing at inside linebacker. Deontay Lawson, the true freshman, number 32 out of Mobile. This is the next stud at middle linebacker. The next freaking stud is Deontay Lawson. The kid had a whale of a game, 4 tackles, 2 pass breakups, a tackle for loss. Nearly had 2 interceptions of Bryce Young in the matchup. DeMoy Kennedy, another linebacker, had a great game for the second team defense. He had 7 tackles. Jackson Bratton from North Alabama, he had 6 tackles to his own credit, a forced fumble. Young guys in the secondary, Christian Story, JaQuincy Kool-Aid, McKinstry, both of those guys each had an interception. I mean, there were so many young guys, Stingray, that made their presence felt on the defensive side of the football. And just to me, I feel like Coach Saban is setting this up for Pete Golding to have success in his 4th season, his 3rd season as defensive coordinator. I mean, you've had a lot of Bama fans that have gone, fire Pete Golding, fire the man, get him out of here. But Nick Saban has held on to Pete Golding once again. The guy got a $250,000 raise from the Board of Trustees. And then you talk about all of the talent that's back and the leadership that's back on the defensive side of the ball. It's as if Coach Saban is telling Pete Golding, what more do I have to do? I mean, you got everything stacked up for you to have success. So Bryce Young checked off the boxes, absolutely. He is the starter going forward at quarterback. But I was very pleased with how the defense and, more importantly, the young guys defensively that were able to step up.
Now,
we were talking about this, Stephen, before. Excuse me, Stephen M. Smith.
Right.
Stephen, you'll be Stingray for the rest of this interview. Stephen,
Good.
You'll be Stephen. But, Stephen, we were talking here before we went on about the wide receivers at Alabama, and I said, who's going to be the leading receiver here this year for the Crimson Tide? I loved your answer. Tell us.
So I think John Mechie will be the leading guy, and he's got some big shoes to fill. When you look at, you lost 4 aces to pro ball. When you discuss Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy, were both first-round picks. Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle will also be first-round picks. So for John Mechie, it's can you step in those shoes and be the next number 1 wide receiver and sort of carry that mantle, if you will. So Mechie's going to have to do that. Of course, he did not go this spring due to he's recovering from a slight ankle/hip issue. But I was proud of what I saw from Slade Bolden, who has turned the corner. Slade Bolden, kind of a gadget of all trades type of player. When he came in the 2018 class out of Louisiana, he could play running back, he could play quarterback, he could play receiver, he could play defensive back. I mean, Slade did everything except sell hot dogs and beer in high school. So he's in Alabama right now. And, this past season, he had some good moments, but now, Bolden is going to be required to do a little bit more from the receiving aspect. He did have 6 catches in the spring game. So I think he's turned the corner. Bill O'Brien is trying to use him the way he used the likes of Julian Edelman and Wes Welker in the NFL, where the New England Patriots were concerned. Now, the guy to keep your eye on here is Ajay Hall, the true freshman from Florida. A lot of guys had him listed as a 4-star coming out of high school. We here at Touchdown Alabama had him as a 5-star. The guy is a freak. Is a athlete. I mean, when I know he wears number 17, and he shares that number with Jalen Waddle, with Kenyon Drake, and also with Cam Sims, who could have been really good at Alabama if not for some injuries. But when you watched Ajay on yesterday, that guy's got some Julio Jones in him. There's a lot of Julio in this kid, a lot of Julio. I'm talking about the body control, the concentration, the way he's able to go up and make those contested grabs. There was a play where he caught the ball from Paul Tyson on what appeared to be a little bit of a drag pattern coming across the field. He catches the ball, he puts a cleat in the ground, and he does a stiff arm. I'm like, this is Julio. He has a stiff arm, creates a little separation, gets out of bounds. I'm like, holy wow, this is Julio out here. And Coach Saban kept talking about it. The guy's got a ton of ability. He's got a ton of upside. He makes those types of plays, and he's been making them all throughout spring. And here's a guy that, yes, Mechie's the main guy. Slade Bolden's turned the corner, but keep your eyes on number 17, Ajay Hall. That kid's different. That kid's something different.
Well, if you had to say that there was a weakness somewhere on this team, would it be offensive line, defensive line, or where?
It would be the offensive line, Stingray, just due to this is a young group. And I don't think people realize you lost Landon Dickerson.
Yeah. Just
saying that by itself is huge. The way he was able to infuse that offensive line together coming from the center position. And then you lose a unanimous All-American left tackle in Alex Leatherwood. You lose a mammoth of a left guard in Deontay Brown. That's right. 3 big guys that you got to replace there on an offensive line. Now, granted, Evan Neal is back, and he's 6'7", 360 himself. So he's back. Chris Owens is back. You've got Kendall Randolph, who's playing a lot of football also, but you also got a ton of young guys that have to find their voice and have to find, what they are. And Coach Saban has had to kind of, shuffle some guys around, plug and play some guys, and these guys kind of have their heads swimming because when you go up against a Will Anderson in practice, a Christopher Allen in practice, a Christian Harris in practice, a team. When you're going up against experienced defensive players, it's like, welcome to the world, baby. Welcome to the world. So it's been tough adjustment for some of these young guys. But I feel like as we get into the summer and as we get into fall camp, those guys will get better. They'll pick up some things. They'll learn some things. They'll find a way to get that, I guess, chemistry and continuity in line. But in the spring game, I mean, you saw it. The defensive front had their way with this offensive unit, especially with the second team group. So guys just have to get the sea legs under and the chemistry going. Right.
Hey, fun question. When's the first time you got confused with Stephen A. Smith?
My whole life. My whole life. It's not even one time, Heath. It's my whole life. Like, now, I would love for just one time they put the wrong middle initial on one of his checks and it gets to me. I mean, that would just be a God-given blessing. I would probably go into the real estate stock business. I would probably play, the sports betting lottery. I don't know what I would do. But just one time can one of his checks, by accident, hit my mailbox.
Hey, I'll make you a promise, Stephen. If we get Stephen A. Smith on the show, we will put up Stephen M. Smith just for you.
You know what? I appreciate that. I 100% appreciate that because I would enjoy just one time for one of his millions of dollar check just to hit this mailbox one time, hit the mailbox, so I can sit there and take myself a little shopping spree. But I mean, end all be all, I thought the spring game was competitive. I thought it was what we needed to see, and even for those that felt like Paul Tyson didn't have a great spring game, you have to take Paul Tyson's performance into context. I actually think he played pretty well, pretty good for the most part. 18 for 34 passing, 171 yards. But the young man was running for his life. Once again, he had the second team offensive line. Every time the ball touched Tyson's hands, he was taken off because somebody was coming up the middle, somebody was coming from the left side and the right side, putting the pressure on him. Now when he did have some time to throw the ball, you did see the arm ability that Tyson has. He hooked up on plays to Hall, to Thaiu Jones-Bell, to Jace McClellan coming out of the backfield. Tyson had a drive where he took the second team offense down the field, and it did cash in on a 48-yard field goal from Chase Allen to tie the game. So Tyson's got some ability. It's just he had to deal with young offensive line one. He had to deal with dropped passes. Xavier Williams dropped some passes. Jace McClellan dropped the pass that hit him dead in his hands. If he would have caught that and kept going, he more than likely would have scored. Tyson had some plays that were called back. He had a 30-yard bomb to Ajay Hall that was called back due to a false start penalty. Then he had a 30-yard play to Jace McClellan that was called back due to a block in the back. So, I mean, Tyson just couldn't catch a break when he was trying to get some things going. But when you take it into context, he actually played pretty well.
Yes.
And I'm going to test the blood pressure of all the Alabama fans real quick. How's the kicking situation?
Okay. I know Reichert missed 3 field goals and people were jumping off the ledge. I literally almost saw one woman grab her bottle of tequila. I'm like, put the bottle back down, woman. Put the bottle back down. I mean, he missed 3 field goals. What people don't realize, the kicking game is such a specific thing. And you have to have chemistry, familiarity, continuity. It's got to be timing and a synchronized motion here. You go back to last year, Will Reichert had a veteran long snapper in Thomas Fletcher, who had been doing this for 4 years. He had a veteran holder in Mac Jones, who was doing it for quite some time. So now you have to learn a whole new long snapper, a different holder, and you have a brand new special teams coach. So all of this Will Reichert's got to process. So I feel like they'll get that timing down, snap, hold, kick. They'll get down throughout summer workouts and going into, I think by fall camp, that timing will be okay. So I feel like with Reichert, he's got to learn a whole new long snapper, a different holder. So he's got to work with those guys. But they'll solve that. They'll get that together.
Well, I want to switch to another sport, and I want to play this clip for you guys real quick, and then we will. I want to get y'all's reaction to this and what actually happened this past weekend. So let me go ahead and roll the highlights for you.
Steven, I have no idea what's about to happen, so I'm with you on this one.
Alabama with the walk-off home run to beat Auburn. What are your thoughts on that?
I giggled over the third baseman. If you go back and watch that clip, it's like the third baseman crapped his pants. It was like, shucks. What was that about?
I would say this. I grew up a hard baseball fan. I played baseball as a kid. And I probably could have had a major league career in it because I played center field. I was like Jim Edmonds out there playing center field. So I could have had a career in baseball. But watching the walk-off there, what people don't realize, Coach Bohannon, the front part of Alabama's baseball schedule was slotted with marquee tough games. He gave this team a gauntlet to start the year. And for this team to now be 22-13, you get the walk-off win 9-8 to beat Auburn. I feel like this team is finally starting to kind of hit a stride, hit a gear, because the bats are firing. And in the last couple of weeks prior to this recent game, the pitching is starting to find itself a little bit more here. So I'm really proud of right now the program under Coach Bohannon is starting to really locate an identity for itself.
Yes. And, right now, it's where you want to be ascending going into the SEC tournament. And then, of course, the regionals, if you do get one. And I'll say this too, Stephen. Alabama has left. Now, this is not in order, but this is who they have left. They have Kentucky, then they have Missouri, and both of those are winnable series. And then they have Vandy, LSU, and then Mississippi State. I think if they can actually get one from LSU and then sweep Kentucky and Missouri, I think Alabama is a lock for Hoover this year.
Well, Stephen, I'll make it more simpler for you. I think if you just win 2 of 3 from those 3, LSU's not looking like a good team at all right now.
Right.
Kentucky is hit or miss. They're a lot like Auburn. Auburn's got to be the worst. They got the worst luck of any team right now in the SEC.
Yeah.
When they're red hot, they run into buzzsaw teams. And when they're ice cold, they're playing teams that are mediocre and still losing to them. Auburn's just got incredibly bad luck. They're not a bad team, but their record is just atrocious right now. But with Kentucky right there, Missouri, and LSU, I think all 3 of those series, you can go 2 and 3, win 2 of 3, I should say, and you're cruising.
Right. I agree. I 100% agree with Heath on this. If Alabama can take 2 of 3 from each team down the stretch. But the big thing for Bama is going to be is that starting pitching. Can we get the starting pitching to go in the 6th, 7th innings, not giving up just a ton of runs? Because like I mentioned, we are starting to see these bats really come alive. Yeah. I mean, I have never seen home runs jump the way I'm seeing them jump right now. And clutch hitting when you need it. So the timing of these bats is hitting stride. Starting pitching, can we get 6 to 7 innings out of you guys down the stretch here? That's going to be the big thing.
Well, let me ask you this. the last time, I think this is correct, and correct me if I'm wrong, the last time Alabama went to Hoover was 5 years ago, correct?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. That's been a long time ago, man.
You know, Alabama used to have this great dynasty, and Stephen, feel free to go research this. Wherever Nick Saban goes, all the other sports start to tank. You know, when he was at LSU baseball that was coming off those national championship runs went to almost nothing. And people want to blame it on smoke, but Nick Saban took a lot of big donors away from LSU baseball and made sure LSU football was going to be what it was. And so same thing at Alabama. Alabama baseball was doing great, you know, but then you just kind of saw it go on a tremendous downfall. You saw Alabama basketball under Mike Godfrey do great, and it went on a slide. Saban takes donors away from those other sports at his own institution, and he makes sure that he gets what he needs to be successful in football. And guess what? He has been hugely successful at football. You know, but now you're starting to see Alabama cope with everything. You're starting to see basketball become competitive again. You're starting to see baseball become relevant again. And you're also starting to see some of the women's sports and some of the Olympic sports like golf. But, you know, they've had some highs over the years of winning national championships and things. So with that, Alabama is starting to kind of see balance among all their programs of doing great compared to football's going to get everything and screw everybody else.
I feel like, Keith, the big thing with that is Alabama is finding coaches that have the same hunger as Coach Saban. If not the same hunger, more hunger. You look at Nate Oates. When Nate Oates came in for Bama men's basketball, he didn't oversell the program. He said, look, we're going to be competitive. We're going to get the right guys in here, and we're going to show you something. And you saw it happen. You know, the first year, Coach Oates, men's basketball was competitive. And then year two, look at the jump it made. You win your first SEC regular season title since, 2002. You win your first tournament title since 1991. You make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. And if not for going 11 for 25 from the free throw line, you would have beaten UCLA. So then there's that. You look at Alabama women's basketball. I've always said this. Christy Curry's a great coach. There's nothing wrong with Coach Curry, but it's always been either the women have a post player and no shooters, or they have shooters and no post player. For the first time, they had both. They had shooters. They had a girl in the post, and got to the national tournament where it knocked off North Carolina. Christy Curry just put a young lady, Jasmine, in the first round of the WNBA draft of the LA Spark. I mean, it's crazy. So you got both basketball programs excelling. You got softball with Patrick Murphy, where we all know softball pretty much does its thing. It's hitting a rough patch right now. It's lost two out of three so far to Florida in this series. Florida always has a good program with Coach Walton down there in Gainesville. But you're starting to see coaches in other venues here at Alabama, they're just as hungry as Coach Saban, if not more, to try to get their programs elevated to where he's got the football program at right now.
Well, where do you feel like, going to basketball for just a minute, where do you feel like for the next season Alabama goes? Do you feel like that they will take a step back because they're losing Jones? Or do you think that they will continue this run and possibly go even deeper next year?
I think next year's team, Stingray's Final Four team. Okay. Next year's team goes to the Final Four. I mean, you look at this. Yes, you lose Jones, you lose Reese, you lose John Petty Jr., and those three set the foundation. But Joshua Primo comes back, and that kid's special. He comes back. Javon Quinley comes back. I know Jaden Shackelford is testing the NBA draft waters, but he's doing this without an agent, so he may come back also. Then you got Juwan Gary coming back. Keon Ellis coming back. You got a 7-footer that didn't play last year. He's coming back. James Rojas comes back. Then you just sign. You're bringing in J.D. Davidson and all these other young freshman talents and transfers. I think the group that saw this team moves to UCLA, when you talk Quinterly, Primo, Gary, Ellis, those guys watched UCLA celebrate. And that hurt is going to stick right there. That's going to build. We're not going to let this happen again. I think next year's team is a Final Four team.
Yes. Well, let me also ask you this, because we're going to shift gears for just a minute. But a lot of people are wondering where Mac Jones is ultimately going to end up in the draft. Where do you feel like Mac Jones will fit in the NFL? And my second question to that is, how do you feel like he will do at the next level?
Stingray, if I had $1 for how many people flooded my inbox with that question right there, I would probably be a millionaire. So if you look at Mac Jones, he can go anywhere in this first round. I know at the number 3 overall pick, therein lies the 49ers, and you don't trade from 13 to 3 unless you really are trying to get a quarterback for the future. And while the personnel room in San Fran, they like Justin Fields, they like Trey Lance, Kyle Shanahan has been adamant about through sources he wants Mac Jones. And Mac really fits that system over there in San Fran. But if not San Fran, you've got the New England Patriots, of whom, here's Belichick-Saban relationship ordeal. And, of course, Josh McDaniels, he had Tom Brady. Mac Jones is kind of Tom Brady 2.0 here. Does Bill Belichick make that move and get a Mac Jones? But for me, I don't think he'll fall this far. But if this was to happen, the New Orleans Saints, that's the most intriguing spot right there. Because you've got Sean Payton, who is the best offensive-minded head coach in the NFL. And then you've got Michael Thomas, big-time receiver. You got Alvin Kamara, elusive, great running back. You've got a defense now that can do some things, and you're playing in a dome-controlled environment. I mean, Mac Jones would really thrive down there in New Orleans, but it comes down to, do they trade up here, or do they feel like Mac will fall to them? But I would like to see Mac number 3 in San Fran, but, San Fran, New England, New Orleans, he would work in all 3 of those situations.
Well, I would love to get your thoughts on this, because obviously you've covered a lot of Alabama football. In your opinion, who is the best pure athlete that you've had the opportunity to cover at Alabama?
Best pure athlete that I had the opportunity to cover at Alabama.
Can I guess? Can I guess before you give an answer?
Go ahead.
Derrick Henry. It has to be Derrick Henry.
You know what? I thought about that. I thought about Derrick Henry, but I'm going to switch it on you. I like Derrick Henry, but it's not Derrick. I think the best pure athlete that I got a chance to cover was Reuben Foster.
Really?
Reuben Foster was something different. It was something else. Watching this kid play, this was literally the hardest hitting, crazy, psychotic linebacker I've ever seen on a football field. There was literally a practice. Here's a funny story. I was at a practice one year. I think this was 2015 practice, and it was in the heat of the day, and so they were working on slant patterns in practice, and Coach Saban had Jacob Coker, doing some slant patterns to the wide receivers. So Coker throws a slant to, I think, Robert Foster. And out of nowhere, this dude comes from the other end of a camera and just took Robert Foster completely out. I'm like, who is that? And all I see is number 10 just staring going, "You got lit up, cuz. You got lit up, didn't you? Yeah, gotcha." I'm like, can someone please just take Robert Foster? Can somebody please take Reuben Foster off the field? Can someone please just take Reuben? Reuben had a way of lighting you up when you least expected it. He had game speed. He had pure speed. He had just I've never seen a player play in my coverage ferocity at the linebacker position the way Ruben played it with that type of ferocity at that position. It was crazy. You never wanted to get hit by Ruben. I'll leave it at that. You never wanted to get hit by Ruben.
Yes.
Here's a fun question for you, Stephen. How much longer is Coach Saban going to do this?
That's the second question that my inbox has been flooded with. How long is he going to do this, man? It's hard to say, right? Because you would think he's, 69 years old.
Yeah, you don't see old football coaches.
He was 69. He recently had a hip done. He had to battle COVID last year, actually experienced symptoms and missed the game against Auburn. So you would think the time would be drawing close, but when you watch him on the field, he's as energetic as a 30-year-old man. I mean, he's out there running and doing scissor kicks and exercising and running and talking trash and juking out of the way. And it's like the fountain of youth cannot be in Florida. It's got to be somewhere in Birmingham. Like, I've never you can't gauge when is it going to be the end for Saban. So for me, if I had to put a gauge on it, I'll say this: he would have to have a season close to what it was his first year at Bama. His first year at Bama, he went 7-6, right? So he would have to have 8-5, 9-4 type of year where it just feels like he's no longer having the same impact. And the reason why I say 8-5, 9-4 is he's had a season where he was 10-3 and he came back hungrier than ever. He's had seasons where he's lost 2 games and he's come back hungrier than ever. So it would have to be a moment where it would be a season where it's close to what his first year was, where he's either 8-5, 9-4, and you can kind of see the writing on the wall where the impact on the players, he doesn't have that same grip on the players that he would normally have.
You know, here's the thing about Coach Saban, and this is what I tell Alabama fans. You know, he's not going to walk away with them winning a national title, and he won't walk away after, as you just mentioned, a 7-6 season or 8-5 or 9-4. I mean, he's not going to walk away from that. And so that's the thing that, he's not going to walk away when it's bad unless he's forced out. And he's not going to walk away as a national champion because he still thinks he's got more to give. So when does he walk away?
Now since you brought that up, we have to bring, his wife, Miss Terry, in here. Where Miss Terry pulls the plug.
She knows. Yeah. She's going to tell him, I'm ready for you to come home.
True. That's what I'm saying. When you bring that in here, Heath, now it goes to the spouse. Now it goes to Miss Terry. At some point, she going to pull the plug. At some point, she going to look at Nick and say, baby, I'm tired. Can we go home? Can we go home yet? Like, at some point, she's going to pull the plug. But then even with her, Heath, it's difficult because she is so beloved here. Like, she is a natural-born first lady. I mean, the way she helps out the youth in the community, the Habitat for Humanity, the giving back to areas in Tuscaloosa and surrounding spots, and the way being just the mother toward these players. A real fun story right now. King Wakuda, Alabama's outside linebacker. He came in the 2019 class. So King Wakuda went on one of his official visits. He went to his first visit. The man came back home depressed. And his mother asked him, not his mother, his folks asked him, King, what's wrong? Miss Terry wasn't there. I didn't see Miss Terry. She wasn't there. And 3 months later, he takes his second visit. This time Miss Terry's there. Completely different attitude. The kid smiling, laughing, giggling, jumping up and down. He's like, Miss Terry, you're here. I didn't see you last time. You're here. Like, just overjoyed to see Miss Terry there. So she's even more of a recruiter than Coach Saban is.
I believe that. You know, the very first time I interviewed Coach Saban, I actually met Miss Terry before him. And this is when Nick Saban had come to LSU. I was at Media Days over in Hoover. And lo and behold, this massive Great Dane gets loose in the hotel and is running down the hall. I was like, that's one of the biggest dogs I've ever seen in my life. And I see this lady chasing this dog, which I thought was funny. Because, one, you don't see dogs in hotels that often, much less these humongous dogs. And if you do see it, you don't really see a woman chasing after it. But lo and behold, it's Miss Terry. And, of course, he's probably in his first or second season at LSU at the time. And so Miss Terry's not Miss Terry yet. We don't know who she is. And so, lo and behold, Coach Saban is coming out of a room from doing an interview, and he sees Miss Terry and his dog standing down there. So he goes over there, takes care of it, and off they go. And so, you know, we bring it up to Coach Saban later on. He was wearing a hideous suit. He was wearing this black suit with purple pinstripes. I mean, I'm sure the Colorado Rocky fans would be just tickled to death to see a suit like that. But it was this hideous black suit with purple pinstripes. And so anyway, he's talking to us, and he makes jokes about his dog. But that's the first time I ever met Miss Terry. But, Stephen, I really think you're onto something, and I think you should get an exclusive with Miss Terry next time you do an interview with her, if you can, and just ask her, hey, are you going to call the shot when he comes home? Because that would make complete sense. And she says, you know, before the 2023 season, Nick, it's time for you to come home. I'm ready to travel before we get any older. This will be your last year. You can announce it or not, but you're done after this season, and we're going to go spend a month in Hawaii, and then we're going to travel the world after that. I believe that story. I believe that's the answer. Miss Terry is the answer.
I can see it happening. I can 100% see it happening. And it's just going back to the clothing apparel thing here, Heath, that you brought up, it just brought up a funny story to me. And this goes back to, it was about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, at spring ball 3 years ago. A friend of mine, she used to work for Tuscaloosa News. She's now in Atlanta, and she had came out on the field. She was right behind me. She had came out on the field in this colorful sundress, and Nick Saban is literally coaching up Tony Brown on the field. And so Tony Brown had made a mistake in a drill, so he's ripping into Tony Brown. And I'm with, Buddy here on the field with the dress on. Coach Saban catches a glimpse of her dress, stops the entire drill, turns around and goes, young lady, that's the most amazing dress I have ever seen. I look at my friend and I go, you might want to get that laminated. You might want to get that dress and just mount it on a wall and just put above it, this is the dress Nick Saban complimented. I put that on the wall somewhere. I've never, I just stopped, turned to look. That's the most amazing dress I've ever seen. I'm like, girl, if you don't get that thing laminated, if you don't put that thing on the wall, never seen that.
What's been your interaction with Miss Terry?
So, interesting here enough is I was around her when she had built a wing onto the juvenile detention center in Tuscaloosa. She built a wing on there. And I remember I went out there to cover that event because the wing she had built on was you had plumbing classes over there. You had plumbing classes, carpentry classes going on, cosmetology classes going on, to where you help kind of troubled youth, find creative things, creative niches in society and in the world. So that was a great interview that I had with her doing that. I mean, of course, I met up with her again because she's big on education. She's big on teaching. So they have the Teacher Excellence Awards in Northport. So I was over there doing that and was able to spend some time with her in Northport, and just a jewel, just a actual jewel of a woman. Of course, she and I were both at the Iron Bowl 2019 at Jordan-Hare, and she spotted me from across the field and gave me a hug, just jogged all the way down to give me a hug. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I hope Coach Saban does not think I'm stealing his woman. I hope Coach Saban does not think I'm stealing his wife, from him. But she comes from one end to the other end of the field, gives me a hug. Just great woman. Great woman.
Stephen, with Coach Saban, we always see him in his press conferences. How much is he building that up and grand staging, or is that really truly Nick Saban when he gets upset at a reporter? Because I think sometimes he kind of grand stages everything.
I think, yeah, I think a lot of that is build up because he's trying to find all the ways to get the players' attention. So a lot of that is build up, and going back to the report, he kind of went after in the question about Bryce Young. There, we heard Saban talk about all spring building up Bryce Young. We've heard Saban talk about all spring discussing the progression, the development, the maturity, like I said, the growth that Bryce Young was having throughout the spring in terms of his leadership and getting the whole command of the playbook. We saw this all spring, Coach Saban talking up. But so the reporter is basically saying the same things to Coach Saban that he was saying. But Coach, he always wants that one moment to where he can get his players' attention by blowing off at the media. So a lot of that is build up. A lot of that is let me find a way to get my players' attention. So that's what he does.
Has he ever gotten you?
He has never gotten me because I tailor my questions. He's never gotten me. I tailor my questions to make sure that he never gets me.
Well, let's go. Go ahead, Heath. Go ahead.
Stephen, give us a quick example of how you tailor your question so he won't get you.
All right. So funny one here, right off the bat here. So it was last year. Matter of fact, it was the Tennessee game last year.
Okay.
And I think one of the questions was on Jalen Waddle. He had gotten his 5th injury question on Jalen Waddle. And I could tell Coach Saban was about to get red hot. I could tell because he starts fidgeting and then he starts low-key grabbing the water bottle. And he's really fidgeting. And so his face kind of turns. So I'm like, he's about to get hot. He's about to get hot. So then it goes to me. So in order to, deter all of the heat away, I throw in a question about Will Reichert. And all of a sudden, his face just did a 180-degree turn. Like he was like, oh, man, Reichert, great kicker. We need him out there. It's so comfortable when you can have a kicker go out there and make field goals. I'm like, look at this. I didn't turn Nick Saban 180 degrees in the opposite direction because if he would have gotten one more Jalen Waddle injury question, we probably would have seen papers flying on Zoom, everywhere.
Well, let's go to the NFL. This is my last question for you, Stephen. Derrick Henry is obviously with the Tennessee Titans, and he's been balling up there. But do you feel like he is ultimately going to have to go to another franchise to win a Super Bowl, or can they get it done in Tennessee?
I think, Stingray, they can get it done in Tennessee.
Okay.
The question is, what is the ceiling of Ryan Tannehill? That's the big question right there. Because to me, once he left Adam Gase, Tannehill got better. He got better. But the question is, what is Tannehill's ceiling? Right. Is he the type of quarterback that can get you to a Super Bowl? Because we are seeing the Patrick Mahomes. We're seeing the Lamar Jacksons. We're seeing the Josh Allens and how Josh Allen's growing. We're seeing a lot of these, second and third year players really show you why they were drafted as high as they were. And of course, you look at this upcoming draft when you got Trevor Lawrence in here and Mac Jones and Justin Fields and Trey Lance. And people have fallen in love with Zach Wilson out of BYU. So the question for Tannehill is, what is his ceiling? How much can Mike Vrabel and that coaching staff get out of him? And if he has hit his ceiling, how aggressive are the Titans in finding a quarterback that can get them to the Super Bowl? Because Derrick Henry's doing his thing. Back-to-back NFL rushing champion. This is a guy that's now, first team All-Pro. Yep. This is somebody who's now well regarded and respected as the best running back in this league, if not one of the best running backs in this league. So it all comes down to what is the ceiling for Ryan Tannehill, and if he's already reached it, how aggressive are the Titans in trying to go after and get another quarterback? Right.
And what about Tua? Do you feel like Tua is in the right spot where he is?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, I love Brian Flores.
Okay.
Brian Flores is a Bill Belichick disciple. Flores is a really good coach. And they could have chosen to keep the number 3 overall pick and move off of Tua. But Coach Flores said, no, we took Tua for a reason. We really like him. They trade the number 3 pick to San Fran. Now, they did go get the number 6 pick. So with the number 6 pick, there's Devontae Smith if you want him. There's Jalen Waddle if you want him. There's Jamar Chase if you want him. Heck, there's Kyle Pitts if you want him. So that's the number 6 pick. And then the number 18 pick, you can go Najee Harris. You can go offensive line. So, and they've also stacked up even more draft capital. I think what people fail to realize is Tua is coming off a catastrophic injury. Yeah. I was in Davis-Wade Stadium in Starkville in 2019 where he dislocated the hip and suffered the damage to the wall of that right hip. He got injured right in front of me. So I'm watching him get hurt. I'm watching him getting carted off the field. I'm watching Nick Saban cry in the press conference. And we're all like, will this young brother be able to walk again? That was the big question. And Dr. Lau Kane, kudos to him, Dr. James Andrews, and that entire department, they were able to get the hip stabilized, no loss of blood flow there. They repaired the posterior wall there with some rods and some screws and what have you. And Tua was able to get to a point to where he could compete in a virtual pro day and put himself in position to be drafted number 5 overall. And despite all of the adversity, he still had, he still was 6-3 as a starter. He still had more touchdowns than interceptions. He still put together some good moments. So for Miami, their job right now, Stingray and Heath, is draft the talent around Tua. You've said you've committed to him. You've said he's your guy. You draft talent around him. Miami does that. Tua's going to be just fine because he's going to take that jump in year 2.
Stephen, what player did you enjoy most interviewing over the years? Because you've been doing this for Touchdown Alabama for over a decade now.
Oh, man.
What player did you enjoy interviewing the most, and why?
Wait. Okay. So in a press conference setting, the player I enjoy interviewing the most, Denzel Duvall, who's right now the director of player personnel. And why? Duvall was just mad funny. He had a way to make you laugh over the simplest stuff. There was one year for Halloween, Denzel Duvall walks in, y'all got your Jason Voorhees mask ready? I'm like, what? Like, he's talking about Jason Voorhees mask and Candyman, and y'all got that chainsaw? Y'all got that chainsaw for them kids? I'm like, what is wrong with this? Like, Denzel Duvall would just say some of the most off-the-wall stuff, and it had you crying, it had you laughing. Like, you didn't know what he would say. You never knew what he would say, and that was just the comedy that was Duvall. But just one-on-one interviews for me, Mac Jones. Got a chance to interview Mac Jones one-on-one in Florida, in Mobile, as he was going through the draft process, and just a great dude. And Mac and I just talked about his journey going from being an unknown 3-star to having the most incredible season by an Alabama quarterback and one of the best seasons in college football from the quarterback position, win a national championship, and just Mac talking about the drive that he had, just him coming in. He came in where he didn't have a lot of social media fanfare. He didn't have a lot of people all over him talking about him. He has to come in, put his head down, laser in on working his tail off, and just getting the people to understand, hey, I'm the guy. Mac didn't have the greatest first spring game. That first spring game in 2017, Mac was it was awful. Mac had to grow from that, and he had to put together a 2018 and 2019 spring games where he became dominant. And then the first Iron Bowl he was in, everybody talks about the 2 pick sixes in 2019, but he had 4 touchdowns. He had 335 passing yards. He gave you every shot to win that game. I mean, he was a grown man out there taking hits from Big Cat Bryant, taking hits from, all those guys on that field for the Auburn Tigers, and still got up and only lost the game by 3. Of course, Joseph Bolovis missed the field goal. I was there for that, and that was heartbreaking. But just being able to sit down and have that one-on-one with Mac Jones and him pouring of himself, his journey to go from people undervaluing him, underrating him, and kind of kicking him toward the curb to him being a national championship starting quarterback wire to wire and having an all-American season and a season where he set a bunch of records. It was just really refreshing getting a chance to talk to that kid.
You bring up something that I thought about, Stephen. Talking about quarterbacks, either they're fun interviews or they're the absolutely most boring interviews.
Oh, my gosh.
Sometimes quarterbacks. Yeah, sometimes quarterbacks are the absolute most boring interview. I think I know the answer to this. Who's the most boring quarterback you've ever interviewed with Alabama?
A.J. McCarron. A.J. McCarron. I'm sorry, A.J., but that was the worst one. I mean, it was like he never even wanted to be there. He would just twiddle his fingers and be like, won the game. I'm like, give me something, AJ. Like, he wouldn't give you anything. He would just be twiddling his thumbs and looking around and staring at his phone. And like, AJ, we're right here. We're making eye contact with you, man. Give us something. And he would just sit there and give you one-word answers like he was Marshawn Lynch and would just walk out. I'm like, this is the worst. It was terrible. It was awful. It was awful.
Since we're getting honesty, which I highly appreciate, who's the biggest nerd that ever played quarterback for Alabama since you've been covering them?
Oh, the biggest nerd. The biggest nerd played quarterback. Greg McElroy. Greg McElroy, biggest nerd. Greg McElroy was the biggest. Greg McElroy and Barrett Jones would have like chess competitions. They would have like Scrabble competitions against each other. Like literally, they would have chess and Scrabble. They would probably be playing Dungeons and Dragons against each other in the basement somewhere. Greg and Barrett Jones, man. Greg and Barrett Jones, man. This is the funniest thing.
Dungeons and Dragons. I never thought I would hear that today.
Yes, those two. Definitely Greg. Definitely biggest nerd I've ever seen play quarterback was Greg McElroy.
That's insane.
Stephen, with that, I'll wrap up with one more fun question. As far as coaches that you get to interview, who's one guy you used to look forward to? And let me jump ahead of you. I used to thoroughly enjoy interviewing Coach Holtz because Lou Holtz, you never knew what he was going to say. But my all-time favorite is Houston Nutt because he was so genuine. But his answers they didn't come from left field. They came the parking lot past left field. I mean, you're like, where did that come from? I absolutely loved interviewing Houston Nutt. It would thoroughly enjoy if Houston Nutt came on the show today. I would thoroughly enjoy it. It'd be one of the greatest things. I would love sitting here and talk to Coach Nutt for an hour. But for you, who's one coach you've absolutely just enjoyed interviewing?
I hate he's gone, Heath. Scott Cochran. Loved Scott. I mean, Scott, real talk, there was one practice. Nick Saban did not let the media get all of the footage we wanted to get. So we're leaving. Scott Cochran comes from the other side of the indoor facility. Hey, media. Man, Nick didn't let you get that? Y'all need to get Nick. Nick just dirty. Oh, man. Y'all get me, though. Y'all can talk to me. I got these guys working out here. Hey, JK, you didn't do that Pilates drill to break your leg, JK? What you doing there, JK? Scott Cochran, amazing. Scott Cochran was absolutely amazing. And even he would be like, well, you know, Nick Saban just lets me do my job. I just love this, man. I get to work with these every day. Just be trying to put that ass polish on them, you feel me? That's all I do. That's all I do. I just put the last switch on, you know, on the Bentley, and I push it on off the lot, and then it goes to the NFL. That's all. That's all I do. I don't know why you're talking to me. It's my only job.
That's actually a pretty good impersonation.
I've been working on that for quite some time.
Steven, do you practice in the mirror?
I actually do. I actually do. I'm working on. I'm actually working on Coach Saban, where he's like, no, we're out here trying to do a job, and you're asking me questions about the quarterback. Well, how you know he's going to play? How do you know if he's going to play or not? You don't know. You're just making assumptions because I guess you're the media and you can put whatever you want to out here. But I'm trying to run a Division I program here at Alabama. That's all I'm trying to do. Miss Terry can't cook for me tonight. I can't have my Debbie cake I want to get. They brought me the wrong bottle of Propel. Like, what do you want me to do? My feet hurt. I'm trying to get my hip going. What do you want me to do?
Your hands are spot on. Your hands are spot on.
Well, Steven, man, this has been fantastic, buddy. Thank you for joining us. And before we let you go, man, please tell us how people can follow you on social media. Tell them, you know, if there's anything they need to look forward to coming up this week or next week in the Alabama Magazine. And also tell them about your show on the CTS.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the people can follow me on Twitter. That's at Coaching M. Smith on Twitter, at Coaching M. Smith. When I'm not covering the Crimson Tide, I actually help coach a football team back home, little high school we got down here. So hopefully, our guys can have a season. Didn't have one last year due to COVID, but it's Coaching M. Smith on Twitter. On Facebook, I am Stephen M. Smith. Pretty simple right there. Stephen M. Smith on Facebook. What they can look forward to where the magazine is concerned, Touchdown Alabama, we're actually about to ship out the new edition of the magazine with Coach Saban on the cover. Covered that entire 2020 campaign. I had a lot of fun working on that magazine, putting a lot of pieces in there. It was a fun season that I had the joy of covering. So once that magazine hits the stores, which will be soon, you guys will have some awesome reading material for you. So check out that a new edition of Touchdown Alabama Magazine right now. In terms of our online site, which is touchdownalabama.com, the online site, we are recapping some pieces here from the A-Day game. I have awesome things coming from that A-Day game, so the online site will have that. As far as the show on CTS, the Bama Standard here, awesome show with Justin Riley, who's a funny guy. Marvin Constant, who always likes to argue with me for some odd reason. Love Marvin, though. Comedian Steve Brown, who is the funniest guy this side of town. Love Steve Brown. And then yours truly, the floating spirit that has to keep everything in order. So that would be me on the show there. The Bama Standard, you can catch that every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Time. Also, the show that I have with Touchdown Alabama Magazine entitled In My Own Words. That being In My Own Words, which I break down Crimson Tide football from all the entire spectrum. You can catch that show on YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 6 to 7. But Stingray, this has been fun. Heath, this has been outstanding. I hope I did not have y'all cry too much there with those impersonations, but I've been working on those for years, man. Long time.
Man, we thoroughly enjoyed it, and hopefully before the season starts, we can have you back on to talk about, the 2021 season and what to expect.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thanks, you guys.
All right. Thank you, man.
Steven, take care.
You too.
All right, man. Well, that wraps up the interview there with Stephen M. Smith, and I've got to tell you, man, those were awesome impressions, just like you said.
Stephen, when I woke up this morning, I did not think we would be talking about hip replacements, Dungeons and Dragons, and Little Debbie's. Don't know where that came from.
Yes. So, but man, I got to be honest with you. Stephen knows his stuff about
Absolutely.
Alabama. He is spot on, and the guy to go to if you want to know the ins and outs of college football with Alabama.
The beautiful thing about Stephen is he doesn't have that filter that most reporters have. He's going to shoot you straight, but he's going to do it with a smile on his face.
Yes.
Even if you don't want to hear it, you're going to be thankful that you did.
Yes.
Because how his approach to reporting, it looks like it's the same approach to life, which makes me smile even more of how genuine he is. But Stephen M. Smith, a phenomenal talent and someone who cares about his community.
Yes.
And I can't say enough good words and put enough adjectives in front of those words to talk about how great he is.
Yes.
I highly appreciate him coming on the show.
And especially with how busy he is with doing so many other shows, and then, of course, writing for the magazine, we really do appreciate him coming on the Stingray Show. And by the way, this Friday, we are having a 2-part series with the legendary Tim Brando. So that's going to be a very good interview there.
Yeah, absolutely. Timmy B came and joined us, and it's always an honor. This is his return trip, so that now makes him a friend of the show. First time you're our guest, second time you're a friend of the show. But Timmy B is now a friend of the show, and very grateful that he was able to join us. And hey, we got to take a sneak peek into Chateau Brando.
Yes.
So Timmy B, can't say enough nice things about Tim as well. Tim Brando, he's been the soundtrack of. If you've been watching sports your whole life, Timmy B is part of the soundtrack of your life. Tim Brando has called so many great games, so many big moments, from anything from the Masters to the College World Series to, the Big Dance. He's done stuff with Billy Packer and Final Fours. I mean, he's done it all. And so Tim Brando, and of course, college football, which is his passion. He used to do those old Jefferson Pollock games at ESPN, and hey, he's the godfather of College Game Day. He was the original host.
Right.
So he's done it all, and he told us a lot about it in the process of it. So very, very fun interview with Tim Brando.
And as we always like to do here at the Stingray Show, since this is an Alabama-themed show, tonight Alabama takes on North Alabama at the Joe out there in Tuscaloosa at 6 p.m. It is on the SEC Network Plus. And also for my friend over there who is the Mississippi State fan, Mississippi State hosts UAB at 6:30 p.m. in Starkville, and it is also on the SEC Network Plus as well.
college baseball season, that's the only time of year my life makes sense, Steven.
Yes.
I absolutely love college baseball. And this has been a fun season. When we had some guests on earlier this year, especially Ben McDonald, I asked Ben this question, will this be the greatest season of college baseball ever? Will there be teams that this will be their best team ever and they won't even make it out of the regional? And he said, yeah, that's a true statement. That's a very fair statement. This has been a dynamic year.
Yes.
I'm a little shocked with the SEC at how top-heavy the teams are. I thought it would be a good mix. But here's the thing, and we talked about it earlier in this show, is that, teams like Auburn are not a bad team at all. Right. They have just had some horrendous luck. Yeah. You put Auburn in almost any other conference, they are in the top 3 teams of that conference. So to the exception of Missouri and Texas A&M, they're kind of struggling, but Georgia has shown some fight. Taking 2 out of 3 from Vanderbilt earlier this year. I mean, this has been a phenomenal season, and we're just to the halfway point. I believe the second half of the season is going to be absolutely insane, and I can't wait to watch it.
Hey, can I get your take on this too, though? Because we've not been together here like this for a long time, but I honestly feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Auburn is still at this point in the season reeling from that horrible, unbelievable loss to Boston College where they gave up 8 runs in the 9th inning with 2 outs. I still don't think Auburn has mentally gotten over that loss yet, and it has really hurt them because they've only won 3 SEC games all year now.
There might be some truth in that. I would like to lean that there's not much in it, but I will say this. When your bullpen has problems, it's in the back of your mind that the bullpen, can the bullpen hold on? Can the bullpen hold on? Sometimes it can. Most of the time it can. Right. Sometimes, not so much. Anytime any team has that happen, fans will question the bullpen for the rest of the year.
Right.
I don't think as much as the players and the coaches. And here's the beautiful thing about baseball is that once you suffer an embarrassing, horrific loss like that, you get to play the next day or the next week and redeem yourself for it. Same thing if you play a great game. The next time out, it might be, atrocious.
Right.
Baseball is a very humbling game.
Yes.
Did Auburn get humble in that comeback by Boston College? Absolutely they did. Yes. It's a very humbling game. It's embarrassing. But baseball players have a different mindset. They really do. But I will say this. If it's a close game and you're an Auburn fan, not necessarily a player, but an Auburn fan, you're scared to death of your bullpen. Yes. You're absolutely scared to death of your bullpen.
Yes.
Here's the beautiful thing. Usually bullpens figure things out at the middle part or toward the end of the season. That's when bullpens really kind of take shape, take mold, take hold. And so I really think that Auburn's bullpen will see an uptick here in the second half of the season. If they can figure some things out, they could be a dangerous team that picks some teams off toward the end of the season. That's going to help someone either get a higher seed, national seed. It's going to help someone get a super regional rather than a regional, or it's going to help someone host a regional or lose being a host. So Auburn is kind of a fun situation where they can pick off some teams and help somebody out down the stretch.
Well, man, that's going to do it for this edition of the Stingray Show. We hope you have enjoyed it with everything and all things Alabama today. Don't forget, on Friday is the interview with the one and only Tim Brando, and it is a 2-part. We will have one on Friday and then the second part on Tuesday. If you're going to the games tonight, enjoy it. Have a great rest of your week. And as always, from us here at the Stingray Show, God bless.
The Dogs and Stingray are coming for you.
This is Stephen Ray, aka Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Good afternoon, Mr. Feinbaum. Stingray here, and I'm about to shoot the bull with you like all the Auburn students do down at Auburn. Worst defense ever! So without further ado, here is the biggest Alabama going for the field goal. The kick is up. It is away. It is no good. Chris Davis bringing it out of the end zone. Oh, he's got blockers. Chris Davis up the sideline. Here he goes.
Here we go, guys. Dobbs back to pass, launching the ball. Jennings, he's got it. Jennings, he's got it. Touchdown, Tennessee. They shocked the Dogs in Sanford Stadium. Are you kidding me? My God Almighty, what an epic way for the Tennessee-Georgia rivalry to end.